Welcome back to the show. I am so excited to have Anabella Rockwell with us tonight. She is a former figure skater, world traveler. She's done so much in her life, and she's trying to make people aware of the Marxist ideology on college campuses and elsewhere. During the 2020 pandemic, she was enlightened, and thanks to sobriety and her Christian faith, she has started a really energetic life trying to promote good values in our country. And she's also the spokesperson for a new website called GOPcast.com. Welcome to the show, Anabella.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Maria, and for that wonderful introduction. It's very sweet.
Well, you're a wonderful woman, Anabella, and you've done a lot, and we're going to talk about your journey as well. But tell us about GOPcast.com.
I am so excited to announce that there's this new website, GOPcast.com, which I'm here to represent. So our founder started this because all of the great voices, especially independent voices, they're on different platforms. They're on YouTube, they're on Rumble, they're on X, they're all over the place. And our founder was trying to listen to things and couldn't remember who is at what time, who goes live when, and had this brilliant idea of, oh my gosh, what if I can create a direct pipeline of all of the leading conservative voices directly to patriotic listeners, so that listeners like, honestly, myself, like our founder, don't have to keep going to a million different websites. We created GOPcast.com, and it's all of the, top conservative voices. And we have a schedule of when everyone goes on. And it's simply, you go to our website, you click the show, it takes you directly to the show. We are not a network. We're not competing with any networks. We just want to make it easier for listeners to find the thought leaders that they enjoy listening to. And it's of paramount importance, in my opinion, right now, especially as we're going into the midterms, that listeners have access to everyone that they want to hear. And on top of that, maybe someone listens to your show but doesn't listen to, let's say, James O'Keefe yet or Steve Bannon. We're going to expose our listeners to all of the great thought leaders in conservative America.
Anabella, what a great idea. Because we aren't mainstream media, we are a little bit harder to find. I worry about it as well. And with my own particular show, you can get me on LindellTV.com or the Lindell app. Some people prefer Rumble. So it is nice that you're the owner of the website is putting the majority of conservative voices, the respectable voices that have integrity, in one place. The Democrats band together well. They send out talking points almost every day. They're all saying the same thing, very consistent. One of the things that attracts me to the Republican Party is our individualism. But it's a double-edged sword. We also have to know about issues, and we can't depend on just one voice. We have to really hear from many conservative voices. So this is a wonderful idea. How long has this website been up?
It's fairly new, which is so exciting that we just launched recently. And so we're hoping to get, as many viewers as possible. And you said it yourself, you mentioned integrity. That is so important to us, right? This is a passion project, is how this was started. And part of the reason is that the independent voices, they have the freedom to really express themselves and say what's on their mind and deliver what's going on in the world very concisely and creatively. And so we just wanted to create a place where people can go and hear all of the best voices like yourself.
Thank you, Anabella. Anabella, you have a story, a journey. What happened during COVID that kind of put you in a different direction?
Well, I had gone to a very liberal arts college. I went to the oldest women's college in the country. It's called Mount Holyoke. And when I arrived on campus, I'd always gone to sort of small private schools. I'm an only child. I've lived all over the world, traveled. I was an athlete, very open-minded and very loving and kind, because I was raised with, I was Episcopalian. So I was in the church, and I just was always told, be open-minded, love everyone. And I went to this very leftist college, essentially. And I think 4 years on this college campus, I was, for lack of a better word, indoctrinated. And a couple years ago, admitting this was kind of crazy. Now everyone sees it. It's at all schools, even your local state schools, because of the administration, the DEI, everything trickles down. So you're seeing it in classrooms. Basically, I was molded into hating America, hating men, being, devoutly feminist, not believing in God. Essentially, all the foundation that I had lived on was kind of stripped from me on this college campus. And it took several years afterwards to basically undo it. And what really opened my eyes in 2020 was the perfect storm of a couple things you had mentioned. I was sober, and in sobriety, I was able to reconnect with God, which is such a gift. And in that, I always joke, I had to remove any substances to not be a Democrat anymore, to see things clearly. And I had worked on Democratic campaigns. I worked on the Clinton campaign. I worked on the Andrew Gillum campaign. Like, I was very much in that world because I'm someone that likes to be of service, just no matter what. And I think during 2020, seeing all the lockdowns, just having everyone's freedom stripped away, and also the vaccine mandates being pushed. And I was working at a top bank at the time down in South Florida, but our rules were coming from New York. And I just felt like I was being so restricted and so controlled. And I was like, this is the antithesis of American principles. And in that, I actually ended up finding PragerU videos online. And the way God works is I ended up meeting someone that worked there and joined their team. So I worked for PragerU for about a year, and that really helped me kind of on this path of re-entering politics, but on the conservative side. And it was completely organic that, I met Dennis Prager, I went on his show, and then the New York Post reached out, and the next thing you know, I'm going on Tucker Carlson. And this story that I had of going to school one way and then leaving so lost, it resonated with hundreds of thousands of people. I was getting emails from parents, from current students, from former students, just saying, thank you for speaking about this, because I had the same experience, and everyone thinks that I'm like confused or out of my mind, but I know this happened. And so I was fortunate enough that I was able to use my voice and share this. And so that's what kind of set the ball rolling on the journey, as you said.
One of the things while you were talking, Anabella, I was thinking about our schools, our public schools, and children at a very young age are being indoctrinated to hate America. History is being changed to fit a narrative. Of course, hard data shows that something's amiss in our schools when math and science scores are so low and we're no longer competitive globally. But what frustrates me is what is being done about it. We're identifying the problem, but the teacher unions have so much control. I don't know what to do. It's very frustrating because I love school, right? And I love history.
Right.
And the fact that our kids are growing up, number one, they can't even do basic functions, taking care of themselves, but there's no critical thinking. I'm very worried for not only their personal future, but the future of our country. We need the best engineers, the best scientists, the best doctors, and everything is mediocre. When we used to push excellence all the time, when I was growing up, it was very competitive. Like, if you didn't get an A in something, you had to earn that A in my day. Like, it was looked down upon a little bit. Like, you were supposed to strive for excellence. What do we do about it, Anabella?
It is frustrating. I think one of the first things is understanding that there was fully a communist agenda that was implemented. And again, like I said, it's admin, it's top down, and trickles into the teachers. You have to look at where the teachers go to school. What were they learning? Who was the administration there? And this has been a plan for a very long time to demoralize our country from the inside out. And, it has been very successful. However, many people are waking up to it and they see it now. So once you see it clearly, the first thing is you have to realize that wherever you went to school might not be where you send your kids to school, because the school that you went to looks completely different today than it did when you went there. And that's kind of I think that pulls at people's heartstrings, right? There's so much emotion involved in like, oh, I want my child to grow up in the same town I did or go to the same school as I did. And that's just not the case. They're not going to get the same kind of education anymore that you did in the past. So being more open-minded, homeschooling, private schools. I'm a big advocate for school choice. It's implemented here in Florida, which is where I live. I would love to see that across the country. Vouchers for school choice. There also, I think the pendulum is swinging just a little bit, because before, a lot of the competitive schools, like you were saying, we used to have this culture of excellence. And I think, my millennial generation, they joke everyone got an award for doing anything, and sort of manifested in people not reaching their full potential because they're just being rewarded for the bare minimum. I do see a shift in that, especially in Gen Z. I think that the generation in their 20s right now, they're seeing what happened to those in their like later 20s, 30s, and even 40s, unable to buy houses, keep steady jobs, get marriage rates have gone down, having children has gone down. So many things that would show that a society is healthy is where we have been weakening. And one of the things I was going to say is a lot of schools went away from standardized testing, having SATs and ACTs, and that's actually coming back. So I would say that's a good thing, is that maybe even some of the schools are starting to realize, okay, we've gone so far one way, we have to rein it in a little bit. But again, what was implemented was a plan over decades, and the same thing is going to happen. It's going to take time to redirect the course, to put us back on the correct path. And I think in the meantime, those with conservative values, with traditional American values, I love this country, so much of that work has to be done at home around the dinner table, inoculating your children before they get indoctrinated in school, and also maybe opting out of the school system in general and having homeschooling pods, or going to a small private school if you can afford it, or moving to a state that has school choice. And that's just the reality of our society today.
Yeah, it's a scary situation. And I was conflicted, Anabella, when the administration said they wanted to really have states take care of their own education. Even though I'm a states' rights person, definitely, I was a little nervous, because I thought, well, New York's going to really just do their own thing and hurt these children. But I guess if you have the federal government taking care of it, it depends on what administration is in there, so it can change all the time. I don't really know the answer. I just know that maybe we should stop federal funding to schools that are, we've threatened that. The administration has been sued over some of their holding back of money, but I think we have to be tougher. And I look at it as promoting children. And I also think parents have a role. You can't leave all education up to the teachers. Like, not to brag, but my kids all read before they went to school. And reading comprehension is so important to success in almost anything. And I think parents definitely have a role to bring their kids along, prepping them, making sure they're doing their homework. It's not just the teachers. So on another, I could talk about this all day. It just drives me crazy. But you're an activist, especially for women. Women have been a second-class citizen in our country for a while. We didn't get even the right to vote for many, many years after we became a country. Was it a century? I think more. And here, Title IX was supposed to protect women, and we had this massive onslaught of men, boys playing in women's sports, being allowed to go in locker rooms, and then the worst of the worst, doctors performing mutilation surgery on minors. We saw the pediatric associations supporting this. The whole world turned upside down. Where do you think we are now? Are we making progress on these subjects?
What I always found during all of this, the trans movement, what was so interesting to me were all these little, remember all the librarians that were having like trans activists come in and read to children? Do you remember this when this was a trend?
Yes, I do.
And statistically, librarians are women. And I would think to myself, I thought women were supposed to protect children. What has gone so awry that it's the women that are bringing this ideology in? And I think that I've seen that women have been, our emotions, maybe because obviously we're more emotional, have been so targeted to be convinced that a man dressing up as a woman is a woman. And I have this argument with women all the time. I don't really have this argument with men. I think that men see it. They're able to see the truth. They're a little bit more, right? Where they're like, that person's a man, they are a man. If they're dressed in whatever they want, so be it. But it's the women that have not been standing up for the children to so bluntly be like, I'm sorry, this boy cannot compete against my daughter in a sport. It's simply not fair. Instead, they're being, manipulated or convinced that, oh, you're so cruel, you're unkind, all these things that are just not true. I think that the Supreme Court decision is, everything that just happened is completely in the right direction. I think that Trump has come out, in support of girls play girl sports, boys play boy sports, and actually bringing truth back into the conversation. Frankly, June was Pride Month. Normally there's a lot of trans activism that I would have seen like all over the internet or all over just the streets, and I didn't see nearly as much of it. I do think that the culture is, again, shifting back a bit, where they're seeing, okay, we went so far one way, maybe we actually need to look at these individuals as people that are sick and suffering. Obviously it is happening. There are people that claim they have, gender dysphoria. Okay, well, let's treat that at the root instead of just say, okay. And then this goes back to, the idea of sobriety, is that if someone is addicted to drugs, you don't just give them more drugs and say it's okay, you identify as an addict. You say, no, let's try to get you off the drugs, and then let's try to see what's really at the root of this. And I think that we need to take the same approach with someone that's so upset in their own skin that they think they have to change completely everything about them. Well, what's actually there under the surface? And I think that the MAHA movement has been very helpful with this as well. Not this specific issue, but just this idea that like health is at the core of everything. Health is wealth. And we have a very sick society, which is why we're seeing, this in conversation. We have to work on our nutrition. We have to work on exercising. And fortunately, Secretary Kennedy has brought so much attention to that. And I think there's been a shift in general. People are getting back to the idea that, wait, meat's actually a good thing. Let's not all be vegan, because then you're depleting yourself of nutrients and vitamins that you need. And if you're malnourished, you might think that you are not your gender.
There are good studies out there that show children, teenagers who do have gender dysphoria basically grow out of it over 90% when they become young adults are like, where was my head at? I was a silly kid. So you're right. We need to talk to the kids, love the children, but encourage them to see the beauty in what they were born in, and that this too shall pass. Well, it's been a fascinating conversation with you, Anabella. We had you on as spokesperson for GOPcast.com, but we got to know you as an activist for truth, integrity, and values, and I can see why you are the spokesperson for GOPcast.com. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I encourage all of you to check out that website, especially if you are having trouble